right, today we're moving on to our first excursion to musical culture, music of Indigenous North America, and this corresponds with chapter 12 of the textbook. First, we're going to look at how the music and culture of a particular group is studied by ethnomusicologists. And this is important to understand from the perspective of a student, and also because your first assignment, your first essay, is related to what's called musical ethnography. Okay, so what we'll find with this textbook is each of the chapters is written by a different ethnomusicologist who's spent some time in the field studying these cultures and musics and behaviors and traditions in those locales. So let's just talk about it a little bit. Most musicologists, ethnomusicologists, study a music tradition through this research process called field work. So this entails studying music in the settings in which it was created, taught, and performed. These research sites or fields can be anywhere. It could be with music and musicians at home or abroad. It can be an urban setting or a rural setting. It can be virtual, so radio, online, whatever the location, and no matter how long the duration of field work, it's really important for ethnomusicologists to develop skills in both observation and participation. So first and foremost, the ethnomusicologist needs to develop the ability to observe, be really attentive to what's going on within a musical setting. And so I'm talking to you guys. I want you to be observant and absorb as much as you can. When we do listening guides, play it several times until it starts to reveal through this experience what is going on, and sort of abandon any kind of preconceived ideas of how it should sound or what's good. You don't have to love this music, but again, just stay open to experiencing it. A rule of thumb is that things that are at first new to the eye and ear of the observer will, as you repeat encounters, quickly become familiar. So it's really important to take notes as you go along, as you're listening and experiencing what you observe. Ethnomusicologists call this field notes. These are taken during or shortly after each encounter or musical performance, just so you don't forget important details. Notice some things and maybe ignore others. It's really important to take notes and be aware of detail as well as your changing perceptions. Make focused observations and keep careful records. That's a really important part of the field work process. Now, a lot of this work has already been done for us in the textbook, but as I said, being observant in the videos that we watch, the performances, look at how they're dressed and observe the sounds and the musical elements will start to reveal themselves, okay? Now, ethnomusicologists that do long-term research often participate actively in the tradition that they're studying. We don't get to do that in this class. It's all online. We are going to be more observing than participating, except for our first essay project. So the process of doing participant observation of music is termed musical ethnography, which refers to the outcome of the research process, a description and interpretation of a music culture through writing, film, or other media. Our first essay will ask you to write your own personal musical ethnography based on your own life's experiences. So in that sense, you have been a participant in your cultural identity, in your environment, in your era, everything that makes up your musical life and that of your family and friends. I want you to take those experiences and write your personal musical ethnography. Now, if you go to Blackboard, the prompt and information about this is there. You can read in more detail about musical ethnography and then the sort of realms to consider as you prepare your paper, okay? The excursions that we're taking on we're going to explore musical cultures all around the world, and each of these are written and explained by ethnomusicologists who are experts in this area because they have been participants and observers working in the field and living in the cultures and observing firsthand. Later on, we're going to learn about, you see this picture of Frances Densmore here. We're going to learn about her. She was an early ethnomusicologist who studied indigenous musical cultures, but we're going to call into question her methods and practice of musical ethnography. So that's a discussion board assignment in the Module 2 folder that you will complete after you've listened and studied this chapter and before you take your module quiz, okay? So let's get started. We're going to look at in depth Chapter 12, the music of Indigenous North America, and this was prepared by the musicologist Byron Dweck. I believe that this person also wrote some other chapters in our textbook. This would be an area of their expertise. Okay. Here's an overview of the topics in this lecture. I am going to split this video into several smaller videos so that you can take breaks, of course, and go listen to the pieces. I discovered after making my first lecture that YouTube doesn't want me to share music in these, and so that's fine. We will just take a break so you can listen to the recordings that I have posted for you in Blackboard, and then you can come back to the next video. So that's how we're going to split it up. So we're going to first learn about powwows through the experience of the author of this chapter at the Winnipeg Powwow Club. Remember, these chapters begin with hands-on, in-the-field experience and examples, okay? And we're also going to have a number of listening guides. We'll talk through it, and then you can follow along the guide either in the textbook or you can hit pause on the video and listen in Blackboard to that. And I want you to listen to it a couple of times so you really start to absorb the form, the sounds, and what's happening with that, okay? So we will learn about the culture, everything. The study of music should include sound, behaviors, and conceptions, like we talked about in the first chapter. So we're going to learn about the sound of the music, the instruments, the musical materials, the structure of the pieces, but we will also explore the context of Indigenous music as it relates to colonialism and to relationships within and beyond the community. So the sections of this lecture will follow the format of the textbook, but the textbook is still really good. Please read the textbook. There's more examples in there, and it's very no one can put it better than the ethnomusicologist. I'm just here to guide you through, okay? And as I said, due to copyright, I won't be able to play the audio as part of the lecture, but you can pause the screen on the listening guide or just use your textbook. Go and listen to the audio of the pieces that I'm talking about that's posted on Blackboard. So let's get started. Okay. So the beginning of this chapter, we learn about an experience the author had attending a powwow club, going to the Winnipeg Powwow Club in Winnipeg, Canada. And what this is, you may have heard of powwows before. You may have participated if you are in a member of the Indigenous community, tribe of some sort. And there's a lot of different types of powwows. I thought this was interesting. There is a an educational club in Winnipeg. Its job, its function is to teach Indigenous young people, or First Nations, since it's in Canada, they typically call them First Nations. They teach them about powwow singing, dancing, and other traditions there. This club was founded by Ray and Rhonda Stevenson, and it was originally part of the community programming of the Mamawi Chi Itata Center. And it's also a social service organization that serves Indigenous families. Nowadays, it's run with support from the University of Winnipeg. So it's really well established, and its main function is for education. Now, what is a powwow? A powwow is a native North American gathering where participants perform in a number of specific dance styles and are accompanied by drum song. And this is to celebrate the culture and the art form and just get together and have a good time. There are so many different types of powwows. They can be smaller local events or very large events with thousands of participants, and they can last for several days. There's competition powwows, and then there's non-competition powwows. So people really train, they get there. As you can see, they have beautiful ornate dress that they wear, and it's a very athletic activity. I have tried to learn some of these dances before, and I got very sweaty. It's a lot of work. In the Northern Plains area, people distinguish between, like I said, traditional and competition powwows. And so you can find all kinds of videos of powwows online. And if they're a competition powwow, and there's the ladies dance, the jingle dance or fancy dance, they will have their number on their attached pinned to their dress, so that because they're being judged, it's a competition. There are 6 core dance styles at powwows in the Northern Plains. There's women's traditional, men's traditional, grass dance, jingle dress dance, which this picture here is of a jingle dress. It jingles, it has little bells on there. Fancy dance and fancy shawl dance. The regalia and choreography differs for each of these dances, and these are interspersed with intertribal dances open to all participants. Traditional dances specific to the group or tribe hosting may also be featured. And there's a great variation from event to event and from region to region. So let's look again at this Winnipeg Powwow Club. The boys are typically focusing on what's known as the grass dance, and the girls focus on the jingle dress dance and the fancy shawl dance. The jingle dress dance is thought to originate in an Anishinaabe community close to Winnipeg. So this dance is particularly important to this area. And dancing will typically be accompanied by a drum group. Now, powwow songs, there are Northern and Southern Plains styles, which are widespread. Let's talk about the Northern Plains. In the Northern Plains style of powwow song, we start at the top of the vocal register, the highest notes you can sing, and it gradually descends over time. Of course, remember, it's accompanied by a drum group. There's a wide vibrato, or the movement of the voice, a pulsating sound, and these songs are usually sung 4 times through. There are repetitions that happen in the song, and these are called push-ups, probably because of the vocal effort to leap back up into the high register again, push it back up. Okay. And most songs at a powwow have the same structure known as ABB. where the A is the A section, this amount of music that we hear. It's also called the lead, and it begins, like I said, the highest part of the melodic line, the highest notes. And then within this, there's two subsections with very similar melodies. The first is going to be sung by the soloist, and then the second part of this A section is sung by the group. Then we move into the B section, which repeats. It's heard twice. So remember, the form is A, B, B. So the B section is heard twice, and each of these B sections are longer than the lead or the A. And even these B sections, because they're longer, they can be divided into subsections. And each of the subsections ends with a distinctive pattern of what's called vocables. These are sung on a repeated pitch. Vocables are syllables without a fixed meaning. I think I might need to change, no, not yet. Such as way, I, hey, oh, for example. And Tara Browner called this pattern the cadence. So the cadence is the end of the subsection of the B, okay? Powwow songs may be a mix of vocables and words or just vocables. Now, this piece we're going to listen to, or you should go listen to, since I can't play anything on YouTube. Thanks, YouTube. This piece is mostly words. This performance is by the Whitefish Bay Singers. And what you need to know is that powwow dancers, they're meant to stop dancing on the final beat of the final phrase of the song, even if it's a song they've never heard before. So all these songs have the same formula, that ABB formula, and the vocables. So these structures help them to listen closely for the end and time their dance steps. Okay. We are going to do, to end this little video, the listening guide 12.1. So at the Powwow Club, the drum group performed a song titled Treaty Number 1. Canada has 7 numbered treaties with Indigenous peoples. The land on which the Powwow Club met was addressed in Treaty Number 1. The lyrics of the song ask, "Where do we come from?" And the answer is, "We come from here." Invocations of treaties have become more common, especially in gatherings of non-Indigenous people. This acknowledges the original inhabitants of the territory. It highlights nation-to-nation relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous inhabitants of the territory. And it's a reminder that these treaties have often been broken. This has had devastating consequences for Indigenous communities and ways of life. So powwow instructors around Winnipeg understand their programs as ways to redress past wrongs and combat ongoing racism and inequality. So let's check out this piece. So like I said, powwow songs are typically in the form ABB. So when you go listen to this tune, and you can find it in the folder, the Module 2 audio folder. It's the first one, and click to open 12.1. So you're going to hear the form ABB, and I would recommend you just listen to it a few times. Just put it on repeat, and the form will start to make sense. You can also look at the timings, because that corresponds with the listening guide here. The A section has 2 subsections. Remember, we have the soloist, and then it's repeated by the group. The B section has subsections as well, and they've been labeled B and C, and it's somewhat longer than A. And we hear the cadences, remember the vocables, heard at the end of the A group, the B, and the C. Okay, so this is where we will stop this video. You can hit pause so you can see this, or it is found in the textbook, so you can follow along with the textbook, and I will